Well, we've still got some somewhat nice weather out here, and it's decently comfortable in the garage. Um, there's some work left to be done on the rudder, and I've got a little bit to do really on all the control surfaces where they've got these fiberglass fairings riveted in place. A lot of little detail work. I'm going to clean up the edge there and sort of fill the gaps. Basically, just going to do some more composite work while the weather's decent, because don't really want to do it indoors.
Well, welcome back to the channel, everyone. We're going to be skipping around a bit here. A couple of videos working on some fiberglass stuff, and then some wiring. I think actually going to be just a couple on the fiberglass stuff, then jump into wiring for quite a while. Maybe I should probably condense the wiring stuff for a while because it's atrociously boring. Yeah, so on these fairings, a lot of people choose to just leave them separate. Like you kind of saw earlier, there's the gap between the where the fiberglass and the metal meet. I have chosen to fill that. I hope I don't regret my choice. I have a feeling that now that I've said that, what's going to happen is vibrations are going to cause it to sort of, come apart and crack over time. I guess we'll see. But the decision is made, you know, all of this work has been done. It's just going to be how it is. So I'm just sanding them all with I think it's 60 or 80 grit, probably 80 grit sandpaper, just to sort of make sure it's nice and scuffed. You can see how big those scratch marks are on the vertical there. It's it's prep work, right? It's a lot of prep work. So here we are. We're going to pull out the total fair, and I think I mentioned it later on that I didn't like the way it was gone. Well, I learned a couple of things. Number one, I was trying to take too much off while I was putting it on, and I had ordered another bit of it later on in the build. And I think this batch that I had gotten was old. So as you see, I'm trying to take too much off. When you're putting on fairing compound, you just kind of gotta, even when it's epoxy based like this, you just fill it in and let it rip. Don't try to take too much off with the scraper, otherwise you're going to be unhappy with your results. So yeah, back to some real-time stuff.
With the initial application of the total fair applied, not great, but you can definitely see there was a low spot in the rudder here along, like it sort of buckled inward between this rib and this rib. I just noticed that as I was putting it on there. I figured, I'm going to put the fairing on, I'll fill it. Let's see what happens when it gets time to sand. It may come back. I may have to use a really wide block here to get it smooth. We'll see. But given the fact that I've learned from this that it's pretty easy to make stuff look nice. And by easy, I mean time consuming, but it's not difficult. So figured take some lessons from that, apply it to these guys. We filled these. I have a feeling this is gonna look really nice once it's sanded. So yeah, let's wait for the stuff to cure, sand it up, and maybe apply another coat.
And here we are back to sanding things. Yeah. Get the sanding block out and do the things. Really just the standard tedious process of composite work. My buddy Kurt says, I think he got this from somewhere else, but how do you know when you're done sanding? Well, you know you're done sanding when you throw your sanding blocks across the room and say, I'm done. Because it's about the only time you know you're going to be done. Whenever it's going to be good enough. can always make it a little bit better, and you can always make it a little bit better, and you can always make it a little bit better, and then you can just take the longest amount of time ever to do the smallest thing just for it to be absolutely perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be good. Can I see the imperfections from 5 feet away? Yeah. Can I see them from 10 feet away? No. Is that good enough for me? Probably. I mean, like I said, as long as it doesn't start to crack, that's kind of my big deal here. Unfortunately, I didn't think about that earlier on, but I swear I've seen these parts on other Vans planes that look like it's all just one big molded piece, which tells me they did something similar where they filled the gaps. Like, yeah, you could leave it, and that would also look fine. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Surprised I started with like a 150 on that. I guess it did need to get knocked down quite a bit with that big block. And I'm just doing some little detail work with a smaller block. Probably again 150 there. Gonna blow it away and okay, where did I mess up, you know? Taking too much off again, but we'll prime it up after that to make sure that there's no issue with the metal being exposed underneath the oxide layer there. Having the air hose around for this is super handy. I think I have the fan going too. It's probably blowing from behind the camera or so to just make sure the dust goes away from me. So we'll hit it with some either acetone or wax and grease remover here, and then some primer, and come back and make a mistake on what we wanted to do, right? Yes. Oh, it's alcohol. Why would I use alcohol for? Then I'm going to hit solvent-based primer. Now, it's a learning process, right? Everything's a learning process. I end up taking some of this primer off anyway because I spray my epoxy primer over it.
I sanded this down, and then I proceeded to start spraying filler primer on it without realizing that they still had a bunch of pinholes because I didn't give it a nice little epoxy glaze. I'm like, why is this not working? Then I just wiped it all down with acetone before the paint could really set. And we'll give it an epoxy coat as a sort of filler, as a pre-filler filler. Okay, the sort of sealer epoxy coat is on. Tell by how shiny it is. But there are a lot of little bubbles and crap in that. So we'll sand that back with some, I don't know, we'll start with 220. It might not be enough. Might have to go down to 150, up to 150. I don't know which way you want to call it, but I really just wanted to fill some of these big sort of voids that happen. Something about this Total Fair that I don't know if I'm just not mixing it well enough, but man, I'm mixing the heck out of it, and these little gaps are from what appear to be some of the hardener that's like hardened into little tiny balls, and they're not like fully mixing in, and so they cause these scrape lines when I'm laying it down. Anyway, those do get filled by the epoxy top coat, so we'll sand that off and get to putting some filler primer on it. So that should finish the upper fairings on these.
All right, here's we're gonna do exactly that. Looks like we're starting with some 220. Seems to be working pretty well. Looks like it clogged up a little bit. Maybe went back down. Oh, went back down to 150. Okay, we had the 220 out. Must not have worked very well. All right, so yeah, start going back to 150, cleaning these up. And then I'm sure we'll shoot some primer on them after we wipe them down with some acetone, alcohol, something or other. Learn as you go. All right, well, if you've made it this long, another longer one here, thanks for sticking with it. Appreciate you watching, appreciate you subscribing, etc. Come back next time, and we're going to be working on filling, like sort of making gap fills for where the so like on top of the horizontal, or on top of the vertical, behind that piece that we just made. So yeah, that makes a nice finished look when it's all said and done. See you then.